What's up, guys? Welcome to Demo with Mo. I'm your host, Monique Simmons. We'll be discussing dating, engaged, and married objectives from a young Christian's perspective. Are you guys ready? Let's dive in. Happy New Year! Happy New Year! Welcome to a new episode of Demo with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons. We are officially in 2023, y'all. We are officially here. God, in His grace and mercy, has allowed us to see a new year, and for that, I am grateful. I hope that you are as excited as I am about this new year and that you are looking forward to a lot of great things in this year. Today, we are going to be talking about growing up in the church. And y'all, this is going to be a good one. And I am not being biased. I am not over exaggerating. It's a great conversation. I was truly blessed. The conversation got so good that it went over 2 hours, y'all. It did. In my interviews, honestly, they don't usually go that long. But the conversation was so good, I could not stop it. I just let it flow and I let God do His thing. So I hope that you guys are truly blessed. I thought that this would be a perfect conversation to kick off the new year. I know a lot of people set New Year resolutions, and a lot of times those New Year resolutions are to have a closer relationship with God, to get back in church, to get back in reading their word, to pray more. So I thought this would be a perfect conversation. And the guests that I have joining me, they were the perfect people to bring on. So I hope you guys receive all that God has for you to receive from today's episode. And it was so good that I decided to make it a 2-parter. So it will be split into 2. You will get to hear half of the conversation today, and next week you'll get the other half. But I really hope you don't listen to one part of it, because you really need to listen to this podcast episode in its entirety. So I really encourage you to come back next week and finish the rest of this, because y'all, it was that good. It was that good. If you're not already, follow me on all social media platforms. Instagram at Demo with Mo Podcast. TikTok and Facebook at Demo with Mo. Come join us on our Facebook private group at Dating, Engaged, and Married Objectives. To celebrate the new year with you guys, we are having a 23% off sale on all Demo with Mo merchandise. The sale will last from January 5th through January 8th. The link for that website to purchase items will be in our show notes for today's episode. But I'm not going to hold you guys up any longer, because I really want you to get into today's episode. All right, guys, let's dive in. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Demo with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons, and today we have some very special guests joining us. I'm actually very excited about these guests. Not that I'm not excited about the previous guests that I had on before, but I'm personally excited about these people because I may be a little biased, but these are actual people who I consider to be family. These women are my church family, whom I love. I have Amanda Furge, Christie Haddon, and Laura Furge joining me on today. Christie Haddon, she's a mother of 2, woman of God. She has been in the field of education for over 20 years. I love her. We have Amanda Furge. She is a boys' mom through and through. She has 3 little boys. She is a poet. She's just dope. All around just dope. We have Laura Furge, who is legit. I don't even know how to tell you guys this. She probably gets sick of me saying this, but she literally can do anything. Anything that she puts her hands on, she can do it. She literally can just wake up one day and decide, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And she's going to do X, Y, and Z. I don't know what kind of
relationship her and God has, like where she just wakes up and be like, God, I want to be able to do this, but it gets done. Like, I mean, I don't understand it, but she's just, she has this thing about her, but whatever she wants to do, she can get it done. But ladies, thank you guys so much for joining me on today. I want to give you guys the floor to give my audience one thing about yourselves that you would like them to know about you.
Well, I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
I feel like you took my one thing. Yeah, I am a person that likes to make and create things, and I've really been doing that more so lately than ever. So I've been enjoying it, and that's my one thing.
Thank you, Laura.
What's one thing I want people to know about me? At this point in my life, I want them to know straight up before anything else happens is that I'm going to be doing Jesus talk. I'm talking about Jesus these days. So if you, especially it's important for me to say as an artist, a creative, and how I show up in the community, it's like, I know people know, that I'm connected to a source, but I'm real big Jesus talk these days. Real big spiritual God with your life. They need to know that. This Amanda.
All right, this is Christie. And one thing about me, and I do mean this, I am a proud big sister of these two. Because you said it, Monique. Laurie is a jack of all trades. And Amanda is an amazing poet. Everything else. So I'm a proud big sister since we're going from youngest to oldest of these two.
Oh, that's so freaking sweet.
Laura, you out of control.
What did I do?
Laura can't help herself, Amanda. She can't help herself. Okay, so today's episode is growing up in the church. And when I was thinking about doing this episode, I wanted to do this episode for multiple reasons. But the number one reason is usually going into a new year, people want to do New Year resolutions. Always. And what's usually one of the number one things that people have on their New Year's resolutions? They want to do what?
Get closer to God.
Get closer to God. Get back in church. That's usually one of the things. I said this would be a great episode to kick off the new year. And what better people to kick this episode off with? Women who grew up in the church. Women that I love who grew up in the church. So I reached out to these women who happen to be sisters. How cool, how freaking cool is that? 3 Christian Black women who I know, who are sisters, who grew up in the church, and they all agreed to come on. One reluctant, but I won't point any fingers or say any names. She just came and she agreed.
I'm sure we know.
But no, seriously though, I knew these would be the perfect people to come on and join me. So ladies, again, I appreciate you guys so much, but we're going to jump right in. The first question is, what's one thing you learned about yourself in 2022?
This is Amanda. I want to say thank you, Monique, for having my sisters and I on your show. We love you. We appreciate you. We think you are fantastic. And we're so grateful that we get to do things together. I love my sisters and I love doing stuff with them. And I know that they love doing stuff with me. They supposed to.
Yeah.
And so this is exciting for us. I know it's exciting for me. So, okay. So thank you, Monique, for your platform.
Yes, ma'am.
Using it to lift up, all the things that you lift up, but especially the spiritual work that we doing as women, Black women here in Mississippi. Okay. One thing I learned in 2022 about myself is that I am very, very, very trusting of folks. I'm very naive when it comes to people and their true intentions. And that's not necessarily a curse on me. It's been a gift also because it makes me more open and vulnerable to people's real states of being. And that's what I learned in 2022 is like, I can be very naive and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But, that's what I learned.
That's good.
This is Christy, the oldest. Uh, in 2022, I have learned that I still have a lot of work to do on with myself. That's what I've learned in 2022. I've learned that I wasn't where I thought I was. That's what I learned.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
This is Laura. What I learned about myself in 2022 is that I have a larger influence or impact on people and things than I thought I did. Just coming from who I am or how I am as a person, where I'm don't have to be the loudest one in the room. And I just feel like I just be doing my thing and don't really follow the status quo to realize or for it to be confirmed that people are watching and people are taking action based on my thoughts and opinion was just something that was kind of a humbling experience. And I mean, that was just something that I learned and I view it as a responsibility, but it's also very freeing so that I don't feel like I need to be something else because I need to be who I am so that people can, have that example from me. So yeah, that's something I learned.
Girl, that's good. That's a great thing to learn. Okay. How old were you when you started going to church?
I was a baby. This is Laura. I believe I was in my mom's stomach.
But you've been in church all your life?
My entire life.
Well, technically, no.
Oh,
okay.
I'm just gonna be honest. When my mom was pregnant with my sisters, my parents weren't necessarily in church. When Laura was born, we lived in Clarksdale, Mississippi, where my grandparents are at. And although my grandparents were very religious and things like that, I remember going to church with my grandmother, we did go to church, but my parents at that time weren't necessarily regulars. They weren't going to church like that.
Gotcha. This is news to me, because, okay.
But for me, Christy, I can say from being in my mom's stomach, because when I was born, we lived in Yazoo, and my mom was in the house with my grandmother, and that's big with my grandmother. So pretty much like the scriptures, like David said, from his mother's womb, he was given back. But for my sisters, yes, they were very, very young, because by the time Laura can say that by the time Laura, even before she was like 1 or whatever, we had moved back to Jackson. And when they were young, that's when my parents made that turn to get back. Now, they were always raised in the church, but like then they weren't trying to go to church like that.
Got you. Thank you, Christy. Amanda?
Well, yeah. Hey, Christy is my historian. When I want to know something about me, I ask Christy. I'm for real, especially about the younger, the stuff that only she can know.
Yeah.
Because she had she was older, she had awareness, and because she studies it, she is that person. So for a question like that, I would ask Christy, when did but for as long as I remember, like a conscious remembrance, I'm like Laura, like it seemed like we've been there every day.
Because they were very, very young when my parents turned back to going back to church. Because again, I remember when we moved back to Jackson, I think we started out going to Verdon Grove, and I think I went to Verdon Grove before my parents even went, because my mom was working with a lady named Miss Joyce Brewer, who was going to Verdon Grove at the time. And she took a liking to me, her and her family, and she would take me to Verdon Grove with her. And my parents did start going, and things started changing. My siblings were, Amanda and Laura, only a year apart. So I'd say like from 1 for one and maybe 2 for the other. So for them, their memory, it would be from the womb, but yeah.
Yeah, and I know, I know that story. I know we used to go to church with our grandma in Clarksdale, because she a church lady. So we did, but I do remember that we did come back to our parents, and I do have a remembrance of them going back to like I knew that language that they wasn't there the whole time.
Yeah.
I do have an awareness of that. So yeah, straight up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's what's up. And Christy, I can relate being the oldest sibling. It's like you remember stuff that the younger siblings don't remember. All righty, ladies. What things do you love about being a part of our church family? Like specifically at New Life. What things do you love about it?
This is Laura. I enjoy the teaching. I enjoy the fellowship amongst my church family, the relationships and the closeness that we have at our church. That's what I enjoy.
I have always enjoyed the people, right? Like the people, I love people. I love the people at the church because they've been with me all my life. Right? So, I love the people. I'm just now enjoying going to the church and being.
Got you.
Because I felt forced to be there for so much of my life that, it's just a habit. It's just something that's a part of my routine. But I'm happy to now be able to say, like, I like going. And that, it's really the people still. It's the people. But it's more for me being with my family there, like doing church on purpose with my family from a space of I want to do this and I like doing this, not because I got to do, this is what we got to do.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Okay, man, we're going to follow up on that a little later, but that's real good. Okay.
Okay, so Christy, the me now, because y'all know me, and Monique, you know me.
Yes,
this probably would have been a different answer a while back, but the me now really enjoys the fellowship because the members at New Life aren't just members, they are family. That's our extended family. That's the way I look at it. That's family. So going to church on Sundays is going to see my family, to be able to worship God with my family. And that's what I enjoy, that New Life is family, and that there's accountability for the most part there. It's not like just going to a huge church where you're just one in a number and people don't know you. You know everyone there. They know you. We try to check on each other. So it's family. It's not just people.
Yeah.
It's not just my brothers and sisters in Christ. It's family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all of you ladies with everything you guys have said. Okay, now the follow-up question to that: what has been some of the challenges? Because I don't want to do this episode and try to make it seem like everything in the church is always good, because that's not the case. I mean, if we're going to be honest, there are challenges. Whenever people are together, there are going to be challenges because we are human. We are flawed people. So for you guys personally, what has been some of your biggest challenges in the church?
Well, this is Christy. There's our delay, Laura. I'm going. Well, I think one thing that we haven't said, and I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but the thing about us is we are the pastor's kids. So our dad is the pastor of our church. Our mom is the first lady of our church. And so as far as challenges, in the past, a challenge has been, and I don't know if I know Amanda could agree on, I don't know about Laura, is you have to share your parent ministry sometimes, and those people would come before maybe what we needed as children, as our actual immediate family. And then just because we are the pastor's kid, just expecting to be involved in everything or having to do you know what I'm saying? Just
yes.
There's an expectation, and I used to say, the old me used to say all the time, I wasn't called to preach. I'd be glad to tell you I wasn't called to preach. Don't look for me. That's my daddy. That's them. But that's been a challenge. Like that expectation. And sometimes when you don't feel like it, there's a guilt, there's a weight. Well, if I don't, I'm how does that make us look, or the family, or whatever? We're supposed to be this, that. It's that identity thing. But I think the unique thing about all of us, and we have a brother too, we are all unique. I don't think any of us dance to the beat of anybody else's drum. We are all unique in our own way, and don't and have our own identity. But yeah, that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to chime in because she said we have a brother. We do have a brother. His name is Matthew. Shout out to Matthew.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
if you're listening, hey Matt.
Christy loves him most. We love him most too. She closer to everybody in her own way. It's the big sister vibe. This is Amanda. The challenges of growing up in the church. That's the question.
Yes, ma'am.
The biggest challenge for me that just comes straight up is in the past. Like I mentioned earlier, the people have always been my favorite thing about the church, but at the same time, people feel like they know you because they know you from church.
Yeah.
And growing up, coming into your own identity. And like Christy said, we not the pastors. We not that we assigned to this right now. But some of the things that people can impose on you as ministers' children, or, pastors of the children, they're going to assign you identities. And sometimes those assignments are rooted in things other than love and appreciation and respect for your humanity. And so the misconceptions about what preachers' kids are like, oh, they deviant, oh, they mischievous, oh, they fast, oh, they this, oh, they that. So, just those assignments had always been challenging. And then also, when I was younger, you don't really understand the way people feel like they can offer you what I like to call unsolicited advice on things based off of what they may have heard your parents say. My parents are used to using us as examples. And that's life. Your mom is, if your dad preaching and he trying to make a point, he gonna use what's available to him. And having, all these children, we are just automatic point makers. And so over the pulpit, giving away some of our private or personal experiences, and then folks feeling like now they have privilege or license to comment on what they heard your parents say. Always been a challenge. That had always been a challenge for me in the past. Is most people are looking for ways to escape their own realities. And so you one of the people that find a great escape in church, then a preacher's kid is an excellent target.
Yeah.
So that had always been one of the challenges for me, is the closeness and the uninvited closeness of people's opinion.
Yeah.
This is Laura. I agree with what my sisters have said, and just would like to add that a challenge for me is feeling like I had to censor myself. I can't fully say what I'm thinking, or couldn't fully say what I'm thinking or feeling. Even, with the rise of social media, just put it on social media. Can't post a Facebook status without a church person thinking, oh, she must be talking about such and such, or that must happen so-and-so. So people having those extra eyes on you, it's both ways as a church member, but especially as a pastor's daughter, having those types of eyes on you and having to just censorship, I think, not being able to fully express yourself. But I agree with what both of them said.
And this is Christy, and the old me was the total opposite. I didn't censor myself when I probably should have, or I feel like I should have been more sensitive and more aware, kind of like what Laura was saying, but I didn't.
Got you. That's a heavy burden to carry. And I love y'all. Like, I legit love y'all. I've never, and maybe this is because I didn't necessarily grow up in the church, I've never looked at y'all as, even though I know y'all are our pastor's kids, I've never looked at y'all like that. I've legit just looked at y'all as who y'all are. Amanda, Christie, and Laura. And I love y'all for just who y'all are. So I could not even imagine walking in y'all's shoes, growing up in the church, having to censor yourself or watch what you say or take on unsolicited advice or opinions or even sharing your parents. Sometimes
I got up one Sunday at the pastor's anniversary. I don't mean no harm, Monique, but I feel like you and Danielle, you and another church member must have gotten up and said something about my parents or calling our parents like your mom and dad or whatever. And I must have said something at that pastor's anniversary. I'm like, these are my parents.
And I apologize if I made you feel some type of way.
No,
legit.
Okay.
I came into new life in a place where I needed that relationship that I started to have with your mom. Like me and my mom were in a rocky place. Like literally, we hadn't talked for a long time, and I needed that. And your mom was there for me. So it wasn't like from a place of I'm taking them away from their kids, or I'm mindful of how I'm making their children feel. And now I'm hearing you guys, and I totally hate that. You know what I'm saying? But it was never.
I will say, this is Christy. I will say this, Monique. Don't. I think for me, and maybe Laura can speak to this too, we are in way different places too now in life, and even in our relationship, in our walk with God. Whereas in those times we were in a different place and might not have understood it, but the more that you grow in God, the more that you learn spiritually and reflect, then you come to see it from a different perspective, and you know that it's not people trying to take your parents or anything like that. I think now I understand better. There's a calling on my dad's life. He before he even is responsible to us, he has to answer to God first. And if God led him to lead the people, that's what he has to do. There's an order to everything, and we have to understand. We had to understand that, but for me, it took growth.
Yeah. And I'm not taking what you guys are saying personally, but I'm putting myself in your shoes, and it still sucks. Like, even though your dad has a calling, and even though he is the pastor, home is still our first ministry. Our spouses and our children, that's our first ministry. And it still sucks. And that's a heavy burden to have to carry, to have to share your family with other people. So again, my heart goes out to y'all, and I love y'all. Okay. So what are some, this is perfect follow-up. What are some of the misconceptions people have about PKs or preachers' kids?
This is Amanda. And some of the misconceptions, I really think that's a super nuanced question because people's thoughts vary so widely. So I can only speak to me.
Okay.
My personal experiences. The misconceptions that people have had about me as a preacher's kid is that I am, or no, not now, I don't think, but I don't know. But whatever works. But that I was out of control. And I wasn't out of control. I was a regular child going through regular developmental things that was exasperated by my position in my family as far as being a preacher's kid, being a middle child, et cetera, because it was youth around us doing more, less, wilder, and nobody batted an eye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We wasn't, and this is no shot, whenever you become pregnant is your journey, but we wasn't pregnant teenagers. We wasn't drinking, we wasn't doing the things that we were being disciplined for just in case, like, right? In precautionary measures, just some of the strict discipline that we experienced. And I guess maybe as a precautionary measure, but just, the way that I showed up in my own style, in my own language, and just the way God made me, being taken out of context by people for what they thought or how they thought, or just, the beauty in being able to make assumptions on other people that distract you from the assumptions you need to be taking care of on yourself. So, yeah, like for me, a big misconception that I'm just wild. Now I am wild for sure, but it's organized chaos. And my relationship with God, this is the way God made me. And I ain't run into no issues that, God ain't took care of. Yeah, that's just a big misconception, is the wildness that preachers and daughters might have inside of them. Now, like I said, also most of the wildness people don't even know about. And it's true. They just don't have the language. They just don't know. This is your assumption. It's true. So yeah, that was a big misconception for me, is that I was wilder than I actually was.
Got you.
Okay, this is Laura, just piggybacking again off of my sisters. I agree with that. I really feel like it can be wrapped up that the misconception is that we are not flawed human beings just like everybody else, because we did come up in the church. We are still adolescents. We are still teenagers. So are we sneaky? Sure, sometimes. Are we quote unquote fast? Maybe. We might want to test the water every now and then. Do we get into mischief? Sure, because we are still human. And this goes back to what Christy said, we were not called into ministry. We are not the pastors or the pastors' wives. We are still children, and we are still teenagers, and we are still young adults trying to find our way in this world. So I think just the major misconception is that we are not flawed human beings just like everybody else, but we're not supposed to be. We're not given that grace to be flawed, just like everybody else. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you.
This is me. But the biggest misconception, I think, is kind of what my sister said, that we are wild, that preachers' kids are wild. But at the same time, it's a misconception, but there is some truth to it. It's just not probably as wild as people would think. I could say that for me. I could say that once I got older and I got from under the thumb of my parents, yeah, I had some experiences. I kind of pulled away from church or whatever, but like coming up, our parents were so strict. We were in church 8 days a week. It was hard. It was kind of hard, but I think that would be the biggest misconception. Yeah, that we were just buck wild.
I don't know, because I wasn't wild. I was just a sweet little angel in church. So.
Okay, sweet little angel.
That's all people knew of me.
Okay, sweet little angel.
You know what, Monique? That is probably true, because the thing
That's
about Laura has the advantage over the rest of us because Laura is the baby. So
That's
Laura was able to watch anything that anybody else did, and she is so smart to either learn from it and say, I'm not going to do that, or learn how to
sneak and do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because the key word of what she said is, that's all anybody knew about. She didn't say that's all I did.
That's right.
Okay, ladies, let me ask y'all this. So now being adults in the church, because you all literally have been in the church all you guys' lives. Now being adults in the church, how do you support young people in the ministry in the church?
This is Amanda. I like to support young people in the church from a position of, I have been a young person in the church before. And most young children, until you become a young adult and you're making your own choices, you might like going to church, but you're there because somebody's more than likely making you be there. Somebody is making you be there. And so I try to support young people from the position of, I have been where you are, but the gag is, it's really going to work out for you if you stick with this church thing. Like if you stick, not even just church, but if your church is giving you spiritual practice, doing the spiritual, not just church
Mhm.
as an institution, a building that you come to, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah.
if you are really use this time to develop your own relationship, and how I wished at a younger age, I don't really wish, I don't believe nothing is an accident. But if at a younger age, I had the consciousness around my own developing my own relationship, then it would have, it could have turned out differently. But when I was young and in church, it was because they was making me be there. And nobody was asking us, this was not my experience, that my parents were trying to make sure, like they were with the other youth in the church, that I was developing my own intimate relationship with God. I could see them mentoring other young people in that way, because they not your kid. And so you can see things and help them, guide them in a different way. But for us, it's just like, when you're in the people closest to you, you kind of ignore and disregard some of the intimacies or intimate conversations and things that they need from you, right? And so no, I didn't get this, where it was, what, Amanda, let's talk about you and God and how you can, just you in your relationship with God. It was really, I was there functionally. You gonna be here. We was at male choir rehearsal. What am I here for? You know what I'm saying? And so I understand like being there because you're being made to be there. But now that I know what I could have been doing while I was being made to be there, I really try to impart that on young people, like find your own way, use this time to do this certain work, because when you do get older and you are presented with the opportunity to go your own way, these things are really going to ground you and learn about, like read the Bible, have you some scriptures, know God for yourself, get you some Jesus, like do this, because I know it seemed crazy, but it's really going to work. Like you really need this. You know what I'm saying? But if I was younger and had been getting that kind of mentorship and guidance, it could have made a difference. Could have made a difference for me. So I want young people to know, like, it's for you too, right? Because when I was growing up, it was really for the grown folks. It was really for the grown folks or the youth in the group, special care of the young people. And they would ask them what's going on in their personal lives, but they weren't asking me that. They weren't asking me about my relationship with my mama. My mama wasn't asking me that, or what do I think about the pastor. My dad wasn't asking me that. It was different. And so for me, I'm just like, take advantage of that. You have people around you trying to help you grow spiritually. Take advantage of that.
That's good. And I appreciate you sharing that about how when you were younger, how your parents talking to, mentoring, sharing with the other kids, but they weren't doing that necessarily with you. Because that's one of my things that I've really been talking to God about wanting to do more of personally. This is just me being transparent. But that's been one of my things that I want to do better as a parent, because I pour into other children. I pour into other kids. I encourage other kids. I support other children. And don't get me wrong, I talk to my kids. I encourage them, but I really want to talk more about them, about God, and seeking their own personal relationship with them, and not them just hearing it from me as their Sunday school teacher, but them hearing it from me as their mom, like legit having one-on-one conversations with them. So I appreciate you even giving your perspective on it. I appreciate that.
And this is Christy. I think for me, as you said in the very beginning, Monique, I am in my 23rd year of education. So children, or teaching children, or being around children, or trying to mentor children has been pretty much my life. I love the youth in my church. I, at one point, taught the youth in Sunday school, or the youth choir. And I'm always talking to them. I'm always checking on them. Those are my babies. And I do find myself, like Amanda said, we didn't have that. Now, when I came up, even before them, our youth in our church was huge. It was a lot of us and they would
Yeah.
take us and do stuff with us, but just they would do stuff to make sure. I think when I was coming up, they would do stuff to make sure we enjoyed going to church. Like we enjoyed that time. That was our we would go on trips and do different things like that. We enjoyed going to church, but and I got stuff out of church for myself, but just people coming up, like Amanda said, just or asking us what we think, and that wasn't the norm. But we do that now. I find myself doing that now. I do that with the youth, and I do that with my kids, and I'm always finding myself talking about the importance of a relationship with God. And for the youth, I always try to break it down in a way that they understand it, in a way that they can relate to it, in a way that is applicable to what they're going through right now. Even when we're in a big setting, I find myself, when I feel like the conversations are over their head or they're not being included in the conversation, I find myself being the one sometimes to speak up for them or to try to interject and explain it in a way that they would get it, and try to encourage them, in their relationship, or encourage them to try to get something out of it. And I'm with you too, Monique, as far as a parent. I think I, in the past, have done better with relating to other people's children versus my own. But my children are now adults, and I find now more in their adult life, me having those one-on-ones and talking to them about the importance of building their own relationship with God. Finding my children have literally been in church from the womb. They've grown up in church. That's all they know. But I at times I feel like it's just what Amanda said. They are just going because you can't be at my house on Sunday unless you're going to work or you're at church, I found myself raising them the same way that we were raised. And so, but I know that's not enough. I try to think back to how I felt, how I was growing up, and how that impacted me, and try to encourage them. Now that I know the importance, I try to think back to how I was with them and encourage them in that way. And so I'm like you, Monique, trying to do better with my own children.
Too.
Yeah.
I just try to be an example, a good example, and mentor where I can. For me, coming up as a child, and my parents were very active, with the youth ministry and whatnot, it was very fun. Now, they did not come to me directly and say, hey, Laura, how you feel about this? Or where are you with this and that? But the type of personality I have, if I'm put into any type of situation, I'm always looking for ways to learn from it. What am I supposed to get from this? Even from a very young age. So sure, my parents didn't come to me directly and say, whatever, how's your relationship with Jesus? But being in those events, being in children church, being at church all the time, and listening to the things that they said and watching the things that they did, it was a space for me to know that Jesus is the one that I'm supposed to lean and depend on. He is my friend. You get what I'm saying? So I have that type of relationship with God where I lean and trust and depend on him solely. And I try and encourage other people, because you can't always depend on other people to take you to the water. You know what I'm saying? You got to go to the source. And that's where I try to stay. And that's where I try to encourage people to be, because people are going to let you down. People are not going to always do what they say they're going to do, not always going to be there for you or give you this or give you that. You can trust and depend on God. That's the magic. That's the trick. And so when I come across young people, I try and encourage them in that way. Like if they complain to me about their parents, it's like, well, have you tried talking to God about it? People are still trying to find their way. Everybody is imperfect. So people are still trying to find their way. Even your parents still trying to figure this thing called life out. You know what I'm saying? So if you trying to put all that pressure on them, what are you doing? How can you make it better for yourself? And then, just encouraging them in that way. So that's what I do.
This is Christy. I agree, Laura, and I will say this, and I know Amanda was about to say something. I think the other thing with me being older too, and like I said, having adult children, when it comes to youth, especially the ones in our church, like Laura said, if they have an issue with their parents, or even like your kids, Monique, I really do try to get them to understand from a parent perspective too. Well, maybe this is what your parents are thinking, or this is how they feel, or whatever. Because my children are grown, so that means for me, the youth in my church, my kids have already been that age, and so I have that advantage as well when it comes to dealing with the youth at our church, because been there, done that as a parent, been there, done that as whatever age those kids are, and then I'm still learning and growing. And one thing that I can say that I commend my sister Amanda on is because she has 3 boys, my 3 nephews, and they are young. What she said she didn't get, Amanda makes sure that her boys now get that. So my nephews get that talk of, what are you getting out of it? I see, man, my nephews are amazing. And for me, I really feel, especially like the oldest one, but really understanding what church is, who God is, what that experience is. And to watch my nephews, it's even different from my kids from when they were growing up, but they are being poured into in that way, because that's what she does, and that's what we try to do. Maybe what we didn't get or didn't have is being poured into them now.
And I want to say this, Samantha, thank you for saying that. I want to say, shout out to Laura. I'm so happy to hear what your experience has been and how you arrived at where you are. And now that I am a parent, and I consider myself a real scientist of the human condition, of humanity, all of this, and all of that is from what I feel like I experienced as a kid, the trauma that I wanted to heal and work through, the relationships. This is how I was raised. So I'm always curious about Laura's experience. Her experience is completely different, but now as a parent, you learn your parents only parenting you from the space that they in their life, and from the developmental spaces that they are in their own lives. So now I'm 35, and I try to have conversations with my parents. I had a lot of conversations with Christy about, I'm very fascinated by self-discovery. Who are we, and how do we get to be this way? And so at 35, I know where I am in my life, the kind of experiences I'm having now. So when I'm parenting from, one day my children are going to be looking back to how old they were when I was whatever age I was, and how I was parenting them, right? So I said to say for Laura to say, I had fun. It was fun for me. And it was, this. And I learned that I had to, get it this way. While my experience was, I needed at the time, which is how I show up to young people, a mentor would have been very helpful for me. Somebody who said, hey, I know that I'm dealing with it. This, I was a kid once. I was a kid once a lot when I was growing up. I got you a kid being a kid's place, right? So I parent from the space of, I was a kid, I was a child. And what would have helped me? What would have supported me? How would I have been able to benefit? And I think about the grown folks in the church when I was growing up, who I did bond with and connect with, who saw me struggling as a pastor's daughter, struggling, and said, you know what, you are just a child. Let me support you for being just a child, and gave me what I wasn't getting from my parents, which was, how you doing today? What's going on with you at school? Not from, these grades look terrible. You know what time you built. But from, at 15, 16, you probably dealing with this. You probably feeling like this, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I try to show up for the young people from the position of, I'm not an adult that is going to be far removed from being a child. A lot of adults, they remove themselves from those things. But I just try not to remove myself from that. And even parenting my own children. I was in children's church and we all learned the books of the Bible, but I was just in a class where that was being taught. I teach y'all the books of the Bible as your parent because I'm giving you this work that's going to help you in your life. This is me to you, not me to just some kids who need some information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is Christie again. I'm like Amanda, and to hear Laura's experience again, to say it was fun. I think all three of our experiences was different because I am, and Laura, don't say nothing when I say this, I am quite older than my siblings.
And you don't say you said.
But so when I was a teenager, my siblings were first grade. Second, when I'm about to get out of high school, that's where they were. And so it was different and it was hard. Like, it wasn't all that fun for me because I'll just be honest, it was such a struggle for me that I left home. I ran away from home at 17. That's just how much of a struggle it was for me. So we do have different experiences, and my sisters are different. Laura has always been the analytical one, so I can see how she would observe and take from whatever she was getting and piece together and come up and have her experience that way. Amanda, her experience is, you know what? I didn't like this, and when I get grown or if I have kids, I'm determined to do it differently, and she does it differently. Whereas with me, it was the same mindset as Amanda, Laura. I'm analytical, and like Amanda, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it this way. It's going to be different if I have kids. But I ended up kind of being the same way with my kids. I literally am, and I'm dealing with this, I am like my dad a lot. I was with my parenting and even with my kids now, trying to understand them as grown up. Unconsciously, what I didn't want to be, I am. That's the difference. Amanda is, I don't want to be that. I'm not going to be that. And she does it. Me, I'm strict, I'm structured, and I'm trying to unlearn that.
Yeah.
And then I want to say also, Christy said she ran away at 17. You can't call what I did running away because I just had a strategy. I just made a strategy for my escape. But I also ran away. Like, I also knew I'm finna get out of here ASAP. So I went to the military because I didn't want no holdups. I wanted to go to college and do a certain thing, but I was like, nah, that's going to keep me connected to this source of what for me was trauma. And so I found a way to get away too. But I was never running away from church or God because I always kept it. Even though when I was younger, I probably said, I can't wait to, I ain't never going to go to church. If I ain't got to go to church, I ain't going. But I always kept church. Like, I always kept that. Like, okay, girl, don't be crazy now. If it was your parents or it was your relationships or your experiences, not God. So I always kept that. But I also had to jet up out of there. Like, I got to go find some kind of way to be able to come back and love my family and accept them for who they are because of what I experienced. But I just want to say, man, I'm so happy for Laura, man, because as big sisters, I get to be a big sister to her. You want them to have better, experience better, not have them same experiences that you had. You know what I'm saying?
Did I say it was fun or did I say I learned from it?
You said you had fun. You did. You said it was fun.
What did I have fun doing? You? children's church. I enjoy children's church and things like that. I want to say it was fun, but I want to say that I found ways to learn from it. I found my source. I found what I needed to get through it without having to, not saying that I didn't get those direct words from my parents, but it's wonderful that we serve a God that knows us individually, knows us, but every single hair on our head, and knows what we need and knows how to get it. So I love that you said you had mentors in the church. So it's like, it's beautiful that we serve such an amazing God that can get us through whatever trials, traumas, whatever we're going through. He gives us what we need and puts us where we need to be. So I just love that.
And I want to say, and I do want to say this, Monique, because I don't want it to get misconstrued. For our parents, and my mom says this all the time, and this is a conversation that we've had to have, and a conversation that has helped me to kind of heal or move past. And even as a parent myself, our parents did the best they could with the knowledge and whatever they had at that particular time. They did what they could do at that particular time with what they had. And you hear this said, my mama says this all the time, when you learn better, you do better. So even with me, my parents both were brought up in the church. But just like us as adults, I know me as an adult, there was a time where I left or wasn't going to church or whatever, and that causes things too. And so when I was growing up, the majority of that, my parents weren't in church. My parents didn't come back into the church until I was a teenager, until I was 12 and 13. And then when they came back in, by that time, my dad is heavily in the church and he's a deacon, but then he gets called to preach. And my dad is a man who truly believes in doing it God's way. And so sometimes that could be a little bit extreme, but again, he was operating the knowledge and whatever at that time. It wasn't the best, but looking back on it, they deal differently with grandkids. They even deal differently with us, and have said everything went right, but we operated in where we were in that space and in that time. And as a parent, I find myself doing the same thing with my kids. We operate in a space and a time with what we have, what we know then. And it all goes back to God. It all goes back to growth. It all goes back to that understanding that you get the more that you get closer to God and get more in His Word, and you get that understanding. And so I do want to say that.
Yeah. Just in case somebody think I'm bashing my parents, I'm not. They are fantastic, and
no.
For me to say, people only operate from the spaces that they in. You can only be and do as much as you can. And so I just say that to say my parenting style is recognizing that and making a conscious effort to be conscious of my children. They don't have nothing to do with me developmentally. I got to parent them. I have to parent them. I have to hold them I have to recognize that they are their own human beings and their own individuals. And what I want to be, who I want to show up as when they looking back and reflecting. I want them to say, I do a lot in community. I'm always serving other people. I want them to say, my mama always served us first. She always served. She always gave us her best, and then everybody else got whatever was left. And that's not to say that wasn't my, direct experience at all times, but I just recognize that we can only do what we can do. And so I just raised my consciousness around it.
My nephew gonna think they were back in the 70s. My mama was a revolutionary.
I love being in church with my nephews and standing next to them, clapping and singing and telling them to stand up and read the Bible.
Like
I
they
love being in
are,
church with them.
they are amazing.
They are. They are.
Individuals.
And I love my big ones too, Ariel and Aaron. I love being able to mentor and encourage Ariel because she almost kind of following in my footsteps. She's choir directress and she working in the kitchen ministry. So
I
I
know,
really
right?
enjoy seeing that with them.
And
Amen.
thank you, Laura. And the thing is with that too, is that she's not being made to do that. These are things that
Mm-hmm.
she wants to do. So it's not me saying, "Oh, you got to do this." She's finding her space and
Mm-hmm.
actively seeking her own relationship with God and her own
Yep.
place in ministry. And I think that is amazing. But what is even more amazing is that my children have been blessed to have the aunts that they have on both sides. And we are blessed to be in, no matter what it looked like then, we are truly blessed to be in a God-fearing family, to be raised
Sure.
in the church. Because honestly, I left. But had I not been raised in the church from birth, had it not been imparted in me from the womb,
Mm-hmm.
from my grandmother, from my mom, and then my mom and dad praying with us and all of that, that train your child up in the way that he
Mm-hmm.
should go is such a true scripture. It is so
Absolutely.
real because
Mm-hmm.
you will not depart from it. You will find your way back. I
It's always in
can't
you.
get too far from it. I feel a way when I'm too far from it. So, and that comes from being raised, it being imparted. It comes with growth, but there's a start. We were trained. So I do thank my
Mm-hmm.
parents. I thank my parents for that. And even now, as a grown up, I can look back on some things that I thought back then was what my parents did, but it's so grateful for it now because had I not gone through those things or had I not been taught that or this or that, there's no telling where I would be. It would be a lot different. So God is good. That's just the grace and mercy of God and how he works through parents and situations and all of that.
Yeah, and I want to shout out my niece Ariel, who just actually she's in the building.
What's she doing over there?
Hey, Ariel.
She is over here being a God-fearing niece, like our mama just said.
She came over there to pray for you?
Yeah, she came over here to pray for me. But that was so beautiful. That's how divine God is because she walked in exactly while we was having this conversation. She got to hear her mom, shout out to her mom and shout out to her. And like my niece and nephews, they are our first experience with being able to say, okay, this is what we born into. This is how we gonna do it.
Yeah.
This is what we have at our advantage. This is who we can be. This is who we destined to be. And man, my niece and nephew, they so beautiful, man. They just these beautiful young people who represent all of us, right? My sister, my brothers, they represent all of us and they do such a fantastic job. And I'm just so proud of like how gracious they are about it. Because like Christy said, they've been in church since, because Christy, when she was pregnant,
they were out of my stomach.
Yeah, when Christy was pregnant with them, she was super churching. And I say that because where she was in a singing group.
What?
She was doing, girl, out there in the country, she was in a singing group. She was super churching. And so they experience is different because country church is different from church in the city too. So they, super church, and they, from what I know from my experiences, they have never really, and they mama can speak to it. They don't really think. You can ask them to serve in the church. You don't even have to ask them really. But when you do ask them to serve in the church, they do it gracefully and beautifully. And for me, that has been so encouraging and inspiring for me because I know what I struggle with, right? So my niece she sing, help with the kids, and she fantastic. She like Laura with all these jack of all trades. And my nephew who play the drums and the guitar and they'll sit it like that's so beautiful to me that I feel like at the young adult stage, they not doing what I was doing at their age, which was unlearning so many things. They are in a great position to be learning and to be learning from us who acknowledge how we got here. So I just wanted to shout out Ariel and Aaron, shout out Christy, because her parenting example informed my parenting. And so that it's generational. We seeing a generational thing.
That's what's up. And I just want to say how beautiful everything you guys said was. And I think this is why it is so important for the church. And I'm glad we're having this conversation, because this is an important part of the church and having this village. We talked about this at Sunday school on Sunday, and I said I hope going into this new year, 2023, that at our church at New Life, that we really begin to take advantage of our village, because God created the church for that reason, not for us just to come here and sing songs and, do things out of routine and out of habit, but to actually be there for one another. Like, that's what the church is created for. Because something I think we do as parents, based on listening to you guys, based on me being a parent myself, based on me knowing a lot of parents, something we make the mistake of doing is parenting all of our kids the same way. And our kids are different. Like, they legit, right. We can all be raised in the same house, experience the same thing, and have all different perspectives. I literally just listened to the three of you guys who were raised in the same home, have three completely different perspectives. And as parents, we forget that. And I'm saying that even myself, I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I think I have
Me too, Monique.
I can find myself trying to discipline them the same way, talk to them the same way, but they are all three completely different human beings. And this is why the church is so important. Because people like you guys, people who I know love my children, love my family, you guys can help me. You guys can talk to my children and see stuff in them that I may miss, where I may be falling short at, where I may be coming down on them or discipline in a way that's not working, or my methods aren't helping them, it's hurting them, and you guys can help hold me up. You guys can help support me. But if we're not taking advantage of the church, not taking advantage of our people, our village, how can we do that? So it's beautiful. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
I hope you guys have enjoyed. Follow me on Facebook at Demo with Mo. If you have any questions you would like answered here live on my podcast, email them to me at demowithmo@gmail.com. That's DEMOWITHMO@gmail.com.